back, it's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we'll be talking about how to draw a manatee. As always, I'm using a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet, and I'm drawing straight into Photoshop. So, let's get arting. Alright, so here is the manatee. So we're going to get started. It's, for the most part, they're gray. Excessively gray. So, right, it's just going to be, what I'm going to go ahead and do, which I hope will speed things up, is do the whole thing in shadow. So do the whole figure, in shadow. And then all I'll have to do after that is add the highlights. Few things to note, something that I normally wouldn't do, but something that I put some thought into after I've sketched it. Because he has, the folds on his tummy here, as I come down, I'm going to loop my lines inward on both sides, right? So I'm going to loop it in. It actually makes it a little easier to come up to edges and to keep my edges straight. But it'll also be easier then to add any highlights I need to do, right? And then do the same thing over here. Loop my lines in, and they'll kind of meet in the middle. Well, where his little, I don't know what you call it, flipper is, it won't meet in the middle. And I'll do that all the way down. So even down here, I'll have them coming in at each other. And then just have them all sort of meet in the middle, like so, all the way down the body. Might take, I don't know if that'll make it any longer or not to sketch. For everything else, I'll be following the normal contours I do. The head coming down, there's a clear ending here, right? So I don't need to worry for the lines, because he has the kind of the nose coming up here, and then you have sort of these lines that'll lead me in that direction anyway. So I'm gonna get this whole thing sketched with that shadow, so just covering the whole thing with gray, and I will be right back. Doing it that way made it take a little longer, but in the end, I think it's going to make the rest of this go a lot quicker. Just fixing up any loose ends. Right, this style is very, because it's so scratchboardy, sometimes it leaves nice jagged open edges on areas that would be not so jagged or open-edged. But because of how I did it, I think it's relatively easy to just come in with a line on the edge, which usually I wouldn't do. Because of how, I'm doing those loops from that edge anyway. Okay. So now for highlights and shadows. I'm gonna have the light source coming from kind of above and to the left, but above and in front of, right? Not behind or next to. That'll give the best chance to illuminate the subject. Sometimes when I'm doing sea critters of any kind, I'll have the light source coming from above, But the last time I did a manatee and did that, it meant that most of the body was really dark, and I don't think that works as nicely. So we're just going to have it coming from above and to the left. Now, because we've already done this in shadow, it won't take much to brighten it up, right? I can just add more lines, and all edges are in shadow, so you know, I won't be pushing those lines up to the end. That's why I think this will be a little easier in the long run, because I won't be pushing my lines all the way over and filling it in. Right, still has some wrinkling, so leaving areas of wrinkling in shadow. And by the eyes there'd be a lot because you have all those, of course the plane's gonna come over. By the eyes you're gonna have a lot, like a lot of wrinkles because of how it's like coming in, right? You can kind of see how that's working out. It's working out nicely, like you can still see it, which is good. Right, so bringing that over, and then allowing that to really fill in, and we can control how light or dark an area is, so we may need to brighten up like some of the shadowed spots if I don't want like an area to be overly deep, because the wrinkles will you know, however dark the shadow is on a wrinkle is how deep the crevice is. So if I don't want that crevice to be very deep or dark, then I'd need to fix it. Right, and then it's just kind of adding, you know, lots of lines like we've been doing. So since I'm doing it this way, it means that I don't have to worry about exactly where, you know, I don't have to add in the shadows because they're added in. But if the light source is coming from above and to the left, there'd be a deeper shadow on this side. And I'm going to fix a little section here, add in more shadows. And you have kind of a bulge happening here in his face that would potentially be casting a shadow on the other side as well. Yeah, I usually try to not have the sketch layer on when I'm adding highlights and shadows and such, but sometimes it's just easier to see what I've done or what I'm trying to do. Right, so there's a bulge over the nostrils, obviously in shadow, but all of this would be. Changing the direction of the lines can help indicate it's, you know, that there's a different contour happening, which is what I've done for the nose. Because this will all be in highlight right through here, so all of that would be highlighted up until it sort of loops under, right? So all this is highlighted as well. And then likewise underneath, probably going to have a little bit of a bulge. Probably a little bit over here. And then it's going to also go into a bulge as it hits here, right? So you probably have a little bit of shadowing on this side as it works its way over, right? So bulge and then probably tapering that off. But all of this bulge on this side would certainly be highlight. But you'd also still have highlight running into it. So this is where that change of line direction can really come into play. Because you would still have on this side, you would have highlight on that nose, but it would be by changing the line direction, hopefully it's enough, and you can kind of still see it here, right? We can still see that change of line direction. So hopefully that's enough visual read for us. And then of course, you know, as we come down, big ol' nose coming down. So then you'd have, you know, a little bit of highlighting over here, but that's gonna be fading off because we're going into areas that it's now twisting away. I'm gonna have a little bit of highlighting right against like the nostril, but then have it go in into shadow around it, which means this, as it comes over, we'll have it in highlight still, but it's working its way into shadow. And I need to be careful because up here I've cut that highlight in a different spot, so I might need to readjust. So under here you'd have some shadowing, on the back side you'd have some shadowing, you'd have that maybe a little bit of highlight here before it goes back. Certainly would have, you know, some highlighting as it comes down and then working its way over into shadow. And then this, as it comes over, would be highlight, right? All of this would be highlight. But again, you have an edge. In fact, it's going down into the mouth, so as it rounds down, that wouldn't be highlight. All of this would be highlight. And again, I can control how, you know, bright or dark this will be. Right, and so we want to taper this off because it's going under. And as it comes down and rounds away and all that fun stuff, taper that off. But we're also going to have this still coming down too, because we are rounding under. Some of that would shift and change. Being mindful of the rolls in their skin. Right, so this would be highlight right up against the nose, allowing that to push over just as far. Okay. And the chin. So some amount of dedication to the chin needs to happen too. Not much. Once again, you're kind of in between. Tapers off as it goes away. Brightens up as it comes over. Brightening up just a little bit to separate it from the area underneath. And just tapering off the edges, right? So then the head itself is going to cast some amount of shadow. It's the only way to kind of make the rest of it work too. So you need the head to be distinctive enough. Right, so as we come down, I might add a little bit of highlighting to the roll, right? Like to some of his skin rolls under here. Indicate it's there. But you would have the head, right? Light source coming from this way, head casting shadow kind of down this way, plus the fin, arm, flipper, oh, I don't know what you call it, would be casting some shadow as well. Right, so we can brighten up some areas like in between, but there would be some amount of shadowing. So head casting shadow kind of this way, flipper casting shadow kind of here, so there might be some highlighting through here and here. But then you're in kind of shadow territory. You still have some highlighting potentially through here, and the body's rounding away, so you know, highlighting, but mindful that you're losing ground. And so now I'm fading off exactly what I'm doing, just enough to indicate there's something there, but not enough to, right, like you can see the rolls in his skin there, but he's clearly got shadow happening. Not forgetting this all still needs to come down too. Right, so you'd have all of this up here that wouldn't be in shadow. Until the flipper blocks it. Which, you know, happens pretty quick because they're I don't know what they are. I guess flippers. So I should look things up before I start talking about them. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Definitely want to make sure the flipper's nice and highlighted, but just like before, you're going to have an area rounding away. Right, so a lot of the rest of this is going to be the same thing. Using, you know, there will be, again, you have some shadowing coming this way. There will be some amount of shadowing underneath his flipper here, but otherwise, a lot of the rest of that's going to be in highlight and his fin. So I'm going to get the rest of these highlights done, and I'll be right back. Can just sort of finish out some of these details here, lessen up some areas of, like, if I think it's too deep. I think it's for the most part fine. Just some spots. Some spots I can lessen up exactly how deep these shadows are going. But nothing much, right? Like, I'm mindful that I want to leave how it's looking, feather out the back. By feather out the back, I mean add a little bit more highlighting to it, but not like put it in highlight, just make it a little brighter. Right, anywhere there's a big gap, basically fill it in. So I was right, by turning it sideways, it certainly made adding the highlights a lot easier, especially along all these folds, but it certainly took a while to do the other way, but I don't know that that's a bad way to do it. It is kind of nice having the end be a little easier. So I'm lessening out some of the ones up top, right? But leaving the deeper folds underneath, especially as it gets down here where the shadow would be. And then anywhere where there might be a weird line. So then let me get a little bit of this too. Just a little bit. Temper that out. So I am going to do a little bit on this arm. I think that'll make it look better. Like, I think it's fine being in shadow, but I also think he might have a little bit of a highlight. Not going to do anything too major. And if I want to, because this is a different layer than the sketch layer, I can just take it right back off. Right, so just giving it a little bit of a burst to indicate it's kind of out and in front of its body. Yeah, potentially picking up light in a different way. But otherwise, a lot of it would be just sort of in shadow. Yeah, that's fine. So then we kind of have the eyes, which are kind of grayish too, but I am going to do it as if, you know, you could see the pupil very poorly there. So again, nothing big. Just kind of filling that out. And again, in theory, this whole thing is kind of grayed over, but I'm not really doing that. Except just now, where I kind of half did that. Okay. And then I'm going to come into like a warmer color. It's still kind of gray. And get, I don't know what these are, like little claws or something. Claws? It's definitely not what those are. Nails, maybe? I don't know. You can see them on some manatees, and I can't see them on others, so I'm going to put it because it seems fascinating to me. And hey, you know, extra details the better, and we can just leave it this very light color. Now, the only thing I don't know if I should do or not do is add a light flare in the eye, particularly because, well, you know, I don't usually do the eyes this way. But in the process, I'm also, if I'm going to do that, I'm also going to reset the pupil back to being that black, pure look. Okay. So then I guess I could just do like a little spot. Give some highlighting to his eye. They wouldn't have that. And then, oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to add highlight here. There would be. And then, after we do that, I'm going to add in like a little bit of like hair. Not much. They don't have much, but there's like little bits that come off. Okay. Better. And then temper this out because that would not be darker gapped. Same with that. Not be darker gapped. Okay. All right. Now I did kind of draw out some hair, right? So this is just, right, some light. I don't know that it's on their chin. I drew it on their chin, but I don't know that it's on their chin. Right, nothing big, just sort of light pin pressure. Just enough you get kind of that sense. Right, it's easier to see it in the shadowed side. Yeah, just that little bit gives them a little bit more scraggliness. And now at this point all I'm doing is like refining little bits. But I'm mostly, you could call it done at this point. I'm just cleaning up. Yeah, I was about to say, I'm just trying to weight that to give his face shape a little bit more structure. Make it brighter. It would be, it's higher up. And yeah, there we go. It is a manatee. Alright, so that's how you draw a manatee. I hope that was helpful. In the floating nether next to me, I have other videos of art tutorials I have done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.